Welcome to the Fulfilment Recipe. Each session is split into two halves, an audio file which explains the theory and the underpinning knowledge behind the practices which you'll find on video file in section 2. Good luck. The Fulfilment Recipe, session 2. Change your thoughts, change your life. So, where do thoughts come from? It's like our mind is this thought-making machine. Every time you get into the shower, your head is flooded with random thoughts. It's like your mind is a thought-producing factory. But what is that voice in the head? The voice that never shuts up, talks about everything, judges and criticizes everything. We are aware that we talk to ourselves in our own head. That wasn't a good idea. He shouldn't have said that. But who's talking to who here? We do know that there's a voice inside our head that converses with itself. It's like your mind is split into two and is having a conversation. And out of that continuous dialogue emerges the story of you, where you are the main character, center stage in the story of your own life. But you're much bigger than the stories that the mind creates. And we want to get behind that chattering mind, because the real you, the deeper layer of self, that which you can't see, which you can't touch, the soul, the spirit, the essence of you, the silent witness, you are the observer behind the chattering mind. The problem is we identify with that voice in our head and we think it's us. But that incessant voice that expresses worries, fears and doubts is not the real you. The inner dialogue is an expression of your psyche and your life experience to date. And you, the real you, is pure consciousness that is aware of this. And awareness of thought is where real consciousness resides. So how do you know that you're not the thought, that you're not the mind? Well, we know this when we sit and observe the thoughts. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to sit silently in reflection and in contemplation and observe passively the thoughts that arise, whether it's watching the breath, just sitting still, or in meditation. We sit quietly and watch and observe the mind and the thoughts. And remember the mindfulness description, non-judgmentally, deliberately paying attention on purpose, without adding any judgment, without analyzing, without interpreting, without trying to change anything, just to be present in the now with what is, without adding anything further to the moment than what is being presented, allowing the moment to unfold, not getting drawn into any events or dramas, not analysing any emotions that come up. There's a certain peace in the background when you allow the moment to just be and to unfold just as it does. And it doesn't take very long for a thought to come in and ask a question or make a judgment, because thoughts find it very difficult to tolerate the here and the now, the state of presence. Thought wants to add something. It wants to control something. But just for a moment, let go the need to control anything, to even understand anything. Because without trying to analyze or interpret anything, it's easier to feel. And thoughts come and go, and you can watch the thoughts. You don't have to follow every single thought that you have. Just watch it, passively noticing, like a witness watching a movie. Watch it and let it go. Just as you can observe the outer world, you can also observe your inner dimensions, the world of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And thoughts are going to arise continuously. That's what they do. But you don't have to get drawn into every thought that arises and immediately follow it according to where it wants to go. Otherwise, you're getting drawn in and following every single thought. You can play and observe with your thoughts, and you'll see that you are bigger than your thoughts. Who is watching those thoughts? So one of the techniques to observe your thoughts is, of course, meditation. Let's say, for example, you're doing a mantra meditation, where you're repeating a mantra over and over again. And what will happen is, during the course of repeating your mantra, a thought will arise, such as, oh, I need to ring Caroline. And then you might have a phone conversation after that in your head with what you plan to say. And then all of a sudden, you'll realize you became lost in thought. And you bring yourself back to the mantra. Now, if you were the thought, if you were the mind, you wouldn't be aware that you'd got lost in thought. Something deeper, something bigger is watching and observing the thoughts in the background and has known and recognized that you've become lost in those thoughts and is pulling you back to the mantra. Something deeper, the real you, that silent witness is observing all that happens quietly in the background. It's just noticing, and it's pulling you back to the mantra. This is how we know we are bigger than our thoughts. So you can observe your thoughts. You can play with your thoughts. But you don't have to be dominated by your thoughts, because they can create a lot of unnecessary problems and they obscure the aliveness of life at this moment. We make lots of assumptions. There's a book called The 4 Agreements. And the 4 agreements go like this. Agreement number 1. Be impeccable with your word. In short, that means tell the truth. Be open and honest. Tell it like it is. Number 2. Don't take anything personally. Number 3. Don't make assumptions. And number 4. Always do your best. But I want to talk about number 3. Don't make assumptions. Now, in the book, there are lots of examples. But this is what the mind does, and this is why I've brought it into this session. So let's just say there's a girl walking down the street on her usual route to work. At the same day, every time, she takes the same route. But on the opposite side of the road, there's a guy who at the same time of day is also making his way to work in the opposite direction. The girl initially thinks, he's quite nice looking. And as time goes on, she notices him. Maybe she dresses up a little more, hoping that he will notice her. Maybe she thinks, I'd like to go out for a drink with this guy. I wish he'd notice me. And then one day, he smiles at her. And she's really happy about this. And then all of a sudden in her head, she's got the first date plan, where they'll go, what they'll have to eat. And this is what the mind does. It creates stories. And before long, she's engaged and married to him in her head. Making assumptions, none of which is real. Because in reality, the guy was actually smiling to someone he knew that was walking behind her. That's the reality. But the mind makes all of these assumptions and dramas, creating problems for us that get us into trouble. So never make assumptions. Now, we know this, the mind does this. And I want you to think about receiving a text message from someone that perhaps is not in your best books. Maybe you don't get on with them so well. So your lens of perception is coloured or maybe biased a little bit against them. So you're going to read that text not in an unbiased way. So whatever that person has said to you, being as how your preconceived ideas or assumptions about this person isn't very good, you're probably going to read that text in a biased light and not a very good light. And since we can never get into another person's head, we don't know what their intention was in sending those words to you. But you've coloured it because of the assumptions that you've made from this person, where maybe their intention in sending you that text was very different. But this is what the mind does. It makes judgments and it creates stories. And we need to get beyond that to the real us. So you might think that tomorrow or the next moment, is going to be better than this one. It's not going to be that much better. This is it. It's the awakening of something deep within you that is way bigger than thought. That is already there and has always been there. You just didn't know it. It's the uncovering of that, layer by layer, taking off the layers of armor, taking away the baggage, to that deeper aspect of self. It's there for you to discover. But of course, it's a deep-seated habit to be totally identified with thinking. It can be called the human condition. Totally lost in thought. So, what I would like you to think about is that voice inside your head. Is it giving you good advice? Or is it just a neurotic noise? I want you to imagine that little voice as a tiny little person that's sitting on your shoulder. Maybe you're looking in the mirror first thing in the morning. What thoughts might enter your head? Oh, I look a mess. I've got grey hair. I've got bags under my eyes. I've put on weight. And imagine that advice is coming from that little person sitting on your shoulder. If you were going to give a job as a personal assistant to that person, would you hire them? I would hope not, because it's not giving you good advice. So think about your thoughts as waking dreams. When you wake up from a dream, you don't feel guilty for thinking, oh, what was all that about? You're not responsible for your dreams. And that's how to think about your thoughts. There's no guilt there. You're not doing it. There's a movie going on. And all you have to do is learn to watch. Separate yourself from the thoughts that are going on in your head. That is what witness consciousness is. I'm not creating these thoughts. They're creating themselves inside my head. I'm watching these thoughts, but I'm not creating them. You, the real you, is the consciousness that is noticing that the mind is doing this. That's what mindfulness is. The first thing you do is watch, notice, listen, passively. You see a thought, you want to do something about it. Events start, and then you notice your mind. How the mind wants to lean in and do something about it. Relax, breathe, lean away. Thoughts can't hurt you. They don't have any power over you, but it's the resistance to the thought which creates the tension and which creates the problems. So it's not about your mind. It's about your relationship that you have with your mind. To get involved in the thoughts, you have to lean in. If you lean away, you get distance, you get time. Your head, your mind should be your sanctuary. You're the only one in there. You're creating your own inner environment. You have willpower inside there. And you've got the right to keep whatever thoughts you want in there. But why would you want to keep anything negative? Thoughts are created. Your consciousness paid attention. But if you pay attention to every thought and get drawn in, you miss your life. You get caught up in your thoughts. And instead of living your actual life, you live life in your head. Why did she get that promotion and not me? That's not you. That's not who you are. That's just the thoughts that are going through your head. But your consciousness gets involved, it gets drawn in, and you pay attention to the thoughts instead of the reality that is unfolding around you. So remember that thoughts stem from habit. There's no real objective reality, only our interpretation of the thoughts. The mind can only hold one thought at any one time. We can't multitask thoughts. To think one thing, we have to let go of another thought. So the trick is to replace negative thoughts with positive ones and be aware that we are thinking negatively. Are we glass half full? Are we glass half empty? Because it doesn't take any more energy to think positive thoughts than to think a negative thought. It's just that if we have a habit of thinking negatively, then we've got to change the habit. And habits don't change overnight. Think of thoughts as little bundles of energy, physical things that you can control. But really, we can't even afford the luxury of thinking one negative thought, or it takes a life of its own. And you might notice that when you think one negative thought, another one is attracted, and then we kind of spiral downwards. So controlling our thoughts allows us to control our mind, because toxic worry drains the mind of energy and power. So we can only afford to let the best thoughts in. Imagine we eat bad food, then we may get sick as a result. In the same way, if we think bad thoughts, it doesn't mean we're a bad person. It just means there are bad thoughts going through our head right now. But the net effect of that can make you feel mentally sick because it drains your energy. So one of the main techniques to cut the thought is via mantra. So let me explain a little bit about how mantra works. And I'll start first by talking about the definition of a worry. What is a worry? Well, I would suggest a worry is a negative thought that's repeated consistently, almost on a loop, constantly thinking about the same thing with a negative spin on it. The net effect of that is it pulls down your energy, it lowers your vibration, meaning we're not going to feel very good. Our energy is low. Think of a mantra as the opposite. A mantra is either a repeated word, sound, or whole sentence, but it's positive, and you're repeating that phrase, sentence, or word, that positive word, on a loop. The net effect of that is to raise your vibration and increase your level of energy so we feel good. So learn to observe your mind and the thoughts and watch how it creates problems and dramas from nothing. So what generally happens is maybe something somebody did or said you didn't like. And now the mind identifies it as a problem. It's not really a problem as such. It's just the natural unfolding of events. But the mind decides, I don't like this. And it becomes a problem. It starts to make assumptions. It creates drama internally. In an attempt to understand the situation, the mind writes stories. This is what the mind does. But it's a choice. There is a different way. I like the mantra, and it's a good one to do when you start your day. There are no problems. Nothing is going to ruin my day. Now, if you say that enough times, you might expect, well, this is going to happen. It's almost like an affirmation. Nothing will come to ruin my day. But of course, the universe, in its playful nature and its infinite wisdom, will probably send you something that may come to ruin your day. And this is when people give up. They think, oh, well, that doesn't work. Well, how do you know that it's going to work unless you're tested? You've got to be sent a test, otherwise you don't know it's going to work for you. So if something does potentially come to ruin your day, it's how are you going to react? Are you going to react out of habit, not consciously? Or are you going to recall that mantra and think, yeah, I see what's happening here. I'm being tested. I have a choice. I can let it ruin my day. Or I can become conscious, lean away, not get involved. Well, there's a saying, don't sweat the small stuff. You know, am I going to take this to the grave? I don't have to. I'll just breathe. Yeah, let's get on with my day. I was sending an email to an ashram in India, and I liked their little footer note slogan on the bottom of their email as the signature. And it was this: there are no problems if you do not create a problem. Because that's what the mind does. You know, in every situation in life that we deal with, there's always usually a higher way of dealing with things than being reactive, which is the only thing the mind knows. A good way to think of thoughts is the playground analogy. So imagine your mind is like a playground at a school. It's surrounded by a secure high fence. And this fence keeps some kids in and others out. So any bullies that are inside the playground means that the kids can't escape for very long. But this bully uses verbal abuse, not physical. So therefore, the kids inside have to accept and learn to be with each other. We can't escape our thoughts, but we can learn to perceive things differently. So here's the example. Along comes the bully with 3 potential victims. Victim number 1 believes the bully and becomes distressed as a result. It reacts automatically, and the bully, therefore, carries on. Victim number 2 challenges the bully. Hey, I'm not stupid. I got 8 out of 10 on my spelling. You only got 4. And the bully eventually gives up. Victim number 3 looks at the bully and walks away. Goes off to play football with his mates. So think about that as thoughts. Number 1, do we believe the thought in our head? If it's not giving us good advice, it's going to make us feel distressed, giving in to worry and fear. And then the mind reacts automatically and the thoughts continue. Number 2, we challenge the thought. Objectively, I don't think so. And eventually, the thoughts stop persisting. Or number 3, looks at the thought, meaning you acknowledge the thought. Nah, walk away, dismiss the thought, change your focus, change your attention. It's just thoughts. I like Eckhart Tolle's description of the two aspects of self, the big I and the little I. The big I, that deep layer, that which you can't see, that which you can't touch, deep in your core, is that unchanging aspect of self. So from the day you're born till the day you die, that essence of you never ever changes. The external appearance, of course, changes on a daily basis, but you might still feel the same inside as you did in your 20s, your 30s, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You still feel the same inside. The external appearance is what changes. And if it changes, it's not the real you. Anything that changes, our thoughts change, opinions change, emotions, appearance, everything is in a state of flux and change. The only thing that doesn't change is the real you underneath that. Same that the day you're born till the day you die. So thoughts and feelings and emotions, they come and they go, they arise and they fall. But it's that timeless presence that's deep within you that remains the same, untouched by time, the real essence of you. So to feel that inner body and that aliveness, some of your attention has to go away from the thinking mind to the feeling body, removing attention from thinking. And that gives us space between our thoughts. We get a different way of looking at things. It allows new thoughts to arise. So attention is energy. Where you place your attention is where you place your energy. Attention is consciousness. It's awareness. And attention, for most people, is continuously absorbed by thinking. You know it. You can see it. When you speak to people, they're not really there. So imagine this. There's a building with many, many stories. And you are in the penthouse suite. And you live there. There's lots of floors underneath. But you never go there. But when you do go deeper into the body, you can see how original your thoughts can be. It only needs a little space to develop new ways of thinking. The mind will always have good and bad, ups and downs, highs and lows, but it isn't who you are, and you don't have to act on it. Get used to feeling the aliveness within the body, the aliveness of the world around you. It's always been alive, but maybe you didn't notice this because your mind was full of thoughts. So make it a daily practice to go within and feel the aliveness within. Feel the life in your hands, and once you can feel that, sense the arms, the legs, the feet. You begin to inhabit your own body. And your body loves attention. Like a child crying when they don't get what they want. They want attention. The body's the same. It cries because it wants to attract your attention. Give it some love. Happiness is found directly within, from being connected to who you are and in touch with that deeper sense of I. Experiencing true freedom, what is that? It's freedom from thought, so that not every thought seduces you, controls you. Freedom from the mind, from the conditioned patterns, emotions and thoughts. Freedom from the past, so that your behavior no longer determines your future. Freedom from the future, because we're always trying to get on to the next moment. Freedom from the voice inside the head. Let me share a story with you. I was treating somebody, helping them with an eating disorder. And I did some research, and during that research, I was watching a lot of TED Talks on eating disorders, and no surprise, they were all relatively young girls who'd been through eating disorders. And it's the biggest mental health issue that has the highest rate of mortality. And what I noticed during watching these different girls, there was this sort of running theme. And the running theme was this, was that they all listened to the voice in the head. And that voice in the head was making up rules, such as always leave food on your plate, never eat after 7 p.m, don't eat any carbs. And they were paying attention to the voice in the head. And this one girl said the voice in the head became ever more restrictive until one day it said, just don't eat. Well, we all know what the consequence of that is. And so did she. And then she brings up a picture of her therapist, whom she calls her angel. And the moment of change where her life turned around was when her angel therapist had said to her, right, you know that voice in your head is not the real you, right? Which, of course, she didn't. She'd identified with the voice in the head. And so the therapist, said to give the voice a name, and which she named the voice Ed, short for eating disorder. And it's a way and a good technique of actually separating the real you, who is watching those thoughts, from the thoughts and the voice themselves. Another technique is to give the voice a silly sound, like Daffy Duck or something. So you're not taking it as seriously. This knowledge was really transformative for the girl in question, knowing that it's not the real her. And you don't have to pay attention to that voice if it's not giving you good advice. One of my teachers many years ago was talking about the voice in the head. And that noise, if it's droning on, it's almost that you have to use your physical voice loudly and actually speak. Swear at the voice in your head. Tell it to F off, in no uncertain terms. Then go away and do a mantra. Change your action, change the habit, let go of the thought, walk away, do something else. But don't listen to the thought if it's not going to bring you up and raise your vibration. If it's giving you negative advice, it needs to stop. Remember, thoughts have no power over you unless you listen to them, get drawn in, identify them, and believe them. So if you're not your thoughts, then who are you? You are the awareness behind the thought, behind the chattering mind. Anything else is just behavioral patterns, social conditioning, emotional forms, thought forms. Your purpose in life is to realize that you are the awareness and not the conditioned pattern. To discover your real nature underneath the level of the story, or true self, which is not to be developed, not to be produced, not to be grown, but rather to be discovered and uncovered as pure bliss, consciousness, and awareness. Are we aware of the mind? Yes. You are the witness of your own mind. Ideas, emotions, thoughts, feelings, memories, it all comes and goes, but you are experiencing it. Who experiences that awareness? The seer and the seen must be different. The awareness must be different from the mind. You are the awareness and the witness of your own mind. Therefore, the mind is different from you. There's a story that's often shared in yoga called the 10 people parable. 10 people were crossing a river, and they thought that one of them had drowned. When they counted, they only found 9, because each person who counted left himself out. The existence of the 10th person is therefore hidden, and the mistake comes that the 10th person has drowned. But the mistake depends upon ignorance of the 10th person. So why is the existence of the 10th person such a mystery? Because all the other 9 people are objects for the counter, and the 10th person is the subject himself. So it's easy to miss. And it's logical to think that there are 9 objects, so you're looking for the 10th. I've found 9 out there as objects, and the 10th person should also be an object somewhere there, but I can't see. Hence, must have drowned. But I am the 10th person, very different from these other objects, because consciousness is not an object. It's hidden in plain sight, not as an object. It's hidden because it's the pure subject. The way to find it is to look for all of the objects that we think we are and then eliminate them to see clearly that we are not them. Once all those mistakes, the mistake that we think we are the body, we think we are the mind, we think we are the senses, we think we are the thoughts. Once all those mistakes are eliminated one by one in our understanding, the hope is that the 10th person, our real self, pure awareness, pure consciousness, will become obvious. It will never become an object. The pure consciousness never becomes an object. If it became an object, then it would become an object to whom? It is therefore the witness, but never the witnessed. Always the subject, but never the object. So by eliminating all other objects, the pure subject should become evident. Once we are aware and understand that we are the awareness behind the chattering mind, that pure witness consciousness, then we can change our relationship that we have with our mind and also our perception of our own thoughts. I like the Einstein quote that goes like this: "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We've created a society that honours the servant and has forgotten the gift." The mind becomes a monster when it becomes your master. So learn to master your mind and your thoughts. So let's now turn to the brain, and more specifically the term neuroplasticity. We now know that the brain does change throughout our lives. It's adaptable, like plastic. So you can think of the brain as like a dynamic power grid connected to billions of pathways or roads lighting up. So every time you feel, every time you do something, every time you think something, some of these roads are well travelled. And these are our habits. Habits are established ways of thinking, of doing, of feeling, and they're contained in the subconscious mind. So every time we think a certain way, because thinking is a habit, then we practice a regular task or feel a specific emotion, and we strengthen this road. And it becomes easier for our brains to travel along this pathway. If we think about something differently, as if we're learning a new task or experience a different emotion, then we start forging a new road. And if we keep travelling down that road, then our brains begin to use this pathway instead. And this new way of thinking and feeling and doing then becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and less, and therefore it weakens. So this process of rewiring your brain by forging new connections and weakening the old ones is actually neuroplasticity in action. And of course, we all have that ability to rewire our brains, to adapt, to change, to learn, to grow. You know, if you've ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, then you've carved a new pathway, a new roadway in your brain. And that's the experience of neuroplasticity. With repeated and directed attention towards whatever it is that you desire to change, you can rewire your own brain. If only we were taught this from a younger age, then perhaps we would all be able to manage our mental health much better. I think it should be part of the school curriculum. Just remind yourself that thoughts create emotions. And no emotion can last in the body for longer than 7 seconds, unless it's fueled by us. Remember, anxiety is in the mind, and our mind has to give it fuel to keep it going. So now I'd like to introduce the RAIN technique from Tara Brach. The acronym RAIN is an easy to remember tool for bringing mindfulness and compassion to any emotional situation that's going on, usually as a result of our own thoughts. And it stands for this: the R, when we're sitting in silent contemplation, observing our thoughts and our internal world, recognize. R is for recognize what's going on. Recognizing means consciously acknowledging at any given moment the feelings, the behaviors, and of course the thoughts that are affecting you. And this can be done with a simple mental whisper, noting what you're most aware of. A. This stands for allowing. Allow the experience to be just there, just as it is. Allowing the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations, and the emotions that you've recognized simply to be there, without trying to change it, without trying to fix, without trying to avoid or push away anything. You might recognize fear and allow that by mentally whispering, "It's okay. Yes, this belongs." Allowing creates a pause that makes it possible to deepen your attention. The I is for investigate with care, curiosity, interest. So to investigate, the desire to know the truth, direct a more focused attention to what you're currently experiencing. And you might ask yourself, how am I experiencing this in my body? What most wants my attention? What does it most need? What does this vulnerable place want from me? What am I believing here? Whatever the inquiry, your investigation and curiosity would be most transformational if you step away from the story and bring your primary attention to the feeling in the body. N stands for nurture with self-compassion. And self-compassion begins to naturally arise in the moments that you recognize that you're suffering. It comes into full aliveness as you intentionally nurture your inner life and your soul with self-care. To do this, try to sense the wounded, frightened, or hurting place inside you and what it most needs, and then offer some kind of care to address this need. Does it need reassurance, love, tenderness, forgiveness? Experiment and see which intentional gesture of kindness helps to most comfort, soften, or open your heart. It might be the mental whisper, I love you, I'm here, I'm listening. It's not your fault, I'm sorry. In addition to a whispered message of care, many people find healing by gently placing a hand on the heart or cheek, or by envisaging being bathed in or embraced by a warm, radiant light. If it feels difficult to offer yourself love, then bring to mind a loving being, maybe a family member, a pet, a friend, a spiritual figure, and imagine that being's love and wisdom flowing into you. After you've done this technique, it's important to notice the quality of your own presence, the now, and rest in that wakeful, tender space of awareness. And the real fruit of this technique is realizing that you're no longer imprisoned or identified with any limiting sense of self. More information on Rain Technique can be gained from Tara Brach's website, tarabrach.com. So if thought affects our mood and the way we feel, and our feelings create emotions, then that can have a direct effect on our physiology. The philosopher René Descartes postulated the viewpoint of interactionism, which suggests that the mind and body are two separate substances, but that they can each affect each other. Also known as the mind-body connection. This is the link between a person's thoughts, attitudes, and behaviours and their physical health. So this means that our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and attitudes can positively or negatively affect our biological functioning. You may be familiar with the term psychosomatic, which is originally used to describe the relationship between the body and the mind. It comes from two Greek words, psyche, meaning mind, and somatic, meaning body. A psychosomatic illness is triggered or made worse by a mental issue. The body gets worn down by things like constant worry and stress. You may also be familiar with the term autosuggestion. And the definition goes something like this. It's the influencing of your physical or mental state by thoughts and ideas that come from yourself. It's often used in self-hypnotism. And it's a technique in which you use positive words and sentences to change your perception. So it's a technique for programming the mind. So I'm going to give you one of my examples of this. that I've witnessed over decades of teaching meditation. And in particular, the Yoga Nidra meditation, which follows a certain format. And one of the class components is to go through opposites: heavy, light, pleasure, pain. And one of them is hot and cold. And what I've observed over the years in certain students is that when I come to the cold, that students often pull up their blankets over them or they shiver. And one student actually said she could not get warm for the rest of the class. Now that's auto-suggestion, just with words. But if you visualize that and you follow those words, the mind influences the physiology of the body to such an extent that people are shivering, getting goosebumps, feeling cold, can't get warm. But I haven't changed the temperature in the room. I haven't opened the window. Nothing has changed except the mind. And the mind and the thoughts are having a direct impact on the body. So, if you believe the auto-suggestion, then it can be very powerful. And we can use that to our advantage. But, we might also think of the placebo effect. If people are told they're taking a wonder drug. And in certain circumstances, there are studies online that have been published to support people having a good recovery rate from fake chemotherapy, from fake operations, as well as having fake drugs. So they're more likely, if they believe that they're getting something that is going to help them and make them feel better, and they buy into that and they believe it, they're much more likely, studies show, to get better, despite the fact that nothing may have occurred. That's the placebo effect. Positive thoughts and beliefs resulting in positive outcomes. But what if those thoughts are negative and those beliefs are negative? And that's what we kind of call the nocebo effect. So negative thoughts having a direct impact on the mind and the body and our physiology as a result. So we have to be mindful of our thoughts and the way we think and the impact that it has on our mental health and our physical health. There's a really good study that is shown in Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural. And this is a really great example of how thought and visualization can directly affect our physiology. And in his book, he talks about a study of the brain scans, in fact, of 3 groups of people. The first group of people play the 5-finger exercise, and they're wired up so that a particular part of their brain lights up when they're playing the keyboard. The second group just have to visualize, right, with thought alone and visualization techniques, that they are playing, that their fingers are really on the chords playing the piano, yet they're just sitting down. The same part of the brain lights up, despite the fact that their hands are nowhere near a piano. That's not too difficult to understand or imagine. The control group just sat there, did nothing, so no part of the brain lit up. No surprise there. Another study was done in the gym, same kind of study, but with bicep curls. So people taking some hand weights and performing an actual bicep curl. And again, a particular part of the brain lights up. Second group just had to visualize from thought and the power of visualization alone that they were, in fact, doing bicep curls in the gym. Again, same part of the brain lights up. Again, not too dissimilar to the first group, and perhaps not too surprising either. Again, the control group who did nothing, no part of the brain lit up. But what was really mind-blowing is that the group that had to visualize from thought and visualization techniques alone thought that they were doing bicep curls from the power of their mind. Yes, the brain lit up. But what's even more mind-blowing is that they gained 13% extra muscle mass from thought and visualization alone. Now that is pretty powerful stuff. So be aware of your thoughts. Check in with yourself regularly throughout the day. What am I thinking? Do I want this particular thought to create my future? If it's a negative thought, cut it. Stop it. Do some mantra. Change what you're doing. Stop it. Remove yourself from it. You can't afford it. Now it's time for the practical element to begin. Just finding a comfortable position for your body. Spending a few moments just allowing the body and the mind to let go of the day and to shut out the external world. And bring your attention ever closer to home. Bringing your awareness to the breath. The rise and fall of the chest and abdomen with each and every breath. On the inhale, the abdomen rises. And on the exhale, the abdomen falls. Just becoming aware of the physical sensations of your breath, without trying to change the natural rhythm or regulate it in any way. This breath is automatic and unconscious. So just know that you're breathing perfectly well right now. Nothing for you to do. Just mentally scan the body for any areas of tightness or tension. And if you feel there's any tension anywhere in the body, just sense the possibility of relaxing and letting go a little. And as you lie here, just allowing an image to form in your mind of the most beautiful mountain that you've ever seen. Allow this magnificent mountain to gradually come into focus. Getting a sense of the mountain's overall shape and size. with its lofty peak high in the sky, and the large base of the mountain embedded into the earth's core. Its steep, sloping sides, coming ever greater into focus, making it vivid, bringing it to life. And just notice how massive it is, how unmoving, magnificent, how solid and stable this mountain is, whether you're viewing it from afar or up close. Noticing the colors, sounds and smells around the mountain. Maybe your mountain has snow up top. Maybe it has tall trees reaching down to the base. There may be waterfalls or streams cascading down the slopes. It may have rugged granite sides or smooth grass. There may be high lakes, flowers and meadows on its sides. Just notice this mountain, observing its qualities: strength, stability, the mighty power of this vast mountain. Now see if you can bring the mountain into your own body, so that your own body and the mountain in your mind's eye become one, so that you too can share in the massiveness and the stillness and the majesty of this mountain. You become the mountain, feeling its essence and its might. Your head is the lofty peak of the mountain, supported by the rest of the body. Your shoulders and arms are the gentle slopes of the mountain, and your buttocks and legs are the solid base, rooted into the floor. Noticing the panoramic view around you. Just become aware of the fact that as the sun rises and falls and travels across the sky, the shadows, the colors and the light are changing moment by moment in the mountain stillness, while the surface teems with activity, vitality and life. flowers, wildlife, waterfalls, plants and streams. And as the mountain sits, seeing and feeling how night follows day and day follows night, but underneath it all, the true essence of the mountain remains unchanged. The bright, warming sun, followed by the cool night sky, studded with sparkling stars, and the gradual dawning of a brand new day. But through it all, the mountain just sits, experiencing change in each moment, constantly changing, yet always underneath it all, just being itself. It remains still and motionless as the seasons flow one into another, from spring to summer to autumn and through to winter. Through the changing weather, the sun, the rain, blue skies, grey skies, changing moment by moment and day by day, it remains calm, abiding all change. In summer there is no snow on the mountain, except perhaps for the very high peaks. And the mountain may wear a coat of brilliant fire colours, pink, orange and red. In winter, a blanket of snow with sheets of ice. Whatever the season, the mountain may find itself at times shrouded with clouds or fog, or pelted by freezing cold rain. Visitors may come to see the mountain and comment how beautiful it is, or how it's a good day to see the mountain, or not a good day, that it's too cloudy, or dark, or foggy. Yet none of this matters to the mountain, which remains at all times its essential self. Clouds may come, clouds may go. Tourists may like it or dislike it. But the mountain's magnificence and beauty are not changed one bit by whether people like it or not, whether they see it or not, seen or unseen, in rain or shine, night or day. The mountain just sits, being itself. Oftentimes the mountain is buffeted by rain, snow, and hailstones, by violent storms and winds of unthinkable magnitude. Yet through it all, the mountain continues to sit. Spring arrives, flowers bloom, the leaves come out on the trees, the fruit appears on the trees. In high meadows and slopes, birds sing. Streams overflow with waters of melting snow. Yet through it all, the mountain remains motionless, unchanged by the weather, unmoved by what happens on the surface, by the world of appearances, remaining underneath it all, its essential self, through the seasons, through the changing weather, through all of the activity ebbing and flowing on its surface. In the same way, when we meditate, we can learn to experience the mountain. We can embody those same centering, unwavering stillness, groundedness in the face of everything that changes in our own lives over seconds, over hours, weeks, months, and years. In our own lives and in our meditation practice, we too can experience the constantly changing nature of the mind and body of the outer world. We too have our own periods of darkness and light, of colour and dullness, of activity and inactivity. We experience our own storms of varying intensity and violence in our external world and in our own internal world, in our mind and our body. We too are buffeted by these high winds, cold and rain. We also endure periods of darkness and pain, as well as moments of joy and happiness. Even our own appearance changes constantly, experiencing a weather all of its own. By becoming the mountain in our meditation practice, we can connect with the strength, with the stability, with the essence of the mountain, and adopt them for our own. We can use the mountain's energies to support our energy, so that we too can encounter each moment with mindfulness and clarity. It's helpful to see that our own thoughts and feelings, our emotional storms and crises, our preoccupations and worries, and our anxieties, even the things that happen to us, are very much like the weather on the mountain. We can take it all personally, but its strongest attribute is impersonal. The weather of our own lives is not to be ignored or denied. It's to be encountered, experienced, honored, felt, known for what it is and held in awareness. And by holding it in this way, we can come to know a deeper silence from within, where wisdom and stillness lie. Mountains have this to teach us and much more, if we can let this in. So if you resonate with the mountain, the strength and stability, return to the meditation from time to time, just to remind you of what it means to sit mindfully with awareness, in true stillness, connecting with your deeper self. Gently start to wiggle your fingers and toes and begin to take your mind out externally now. Visualizing your body on the floor. Whenever you feel ready, you can end the meditation.
Transcendental meditation. This is one of the first types of meditation I learned at the age of 26 when I was extremely stressed. And a lot of people come to meditation because of stress, and of course it will reduce your stress levels. So it's really different from mantra repetition, or what we would call japa meditation, in the fact that the sound is really not a word, it's just a sound. And it doesn't have any particular meaning assigned to it. So it's different in that respect. The sounds that we used are what we call bij mantras. Bij means seed. And these are kind of the old, ancient mantras. Om is probably the most recognizable. Om is the sound of creation, if you like. So mantra repetition or japa meditation, you know, you could have a whole sentence. It may be in Sanskrit, it may be in English, but they would have a meaning assigned to it, whereas transcendental, using the bij mantra or the seed sounds of the universe, that's the main difference. It was really introduced to the West by the Beatles, where they learned transcendental meditation from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Nowadays, if you embark upon the journey of transcendental meditation, you are initiated. It's like a small ceremony where you're given one of the bij seed mantras by the guru, who will choose one personally for you. So basic practice is to sit twice a day, once in the morning and once in the evening for 20 minutes. So sitting upright, eyes are closed, straight spine, and you just mentally repeat the Bij mantra, the seed sound, over and over in your head for 20 minutes. And what will generally happen, let's take the mantra Om. What you'll notice as you're mentally repeating the mantra is that it might change length. Sometimes you might repeat it might be very short in length. Other times it might be an extended length. It might change in pitch or tone, so it might go a pitch higher, Om, and then Om a little bit lower. So it may change slightly with the constant repetition, and that's fine. And what you'll find is, initially, when you sit to meditate, there'll be so many thoughts that go around in your head. So as soon as you start mentally repeating your mantra in your head, a thought will come in to interrupt that mental repetition. And that thought might be, I've got to ring Paula, for example. And thoughts will come and go, but what you're trying to treat those thoughts as a passing cloud, so that you're not really resisting them, because that will take mental effort, and we don't want to concentrate too hard. And the more you resist a thought, the more it kind of comes back at you. So we say treating thoughts like passing clouds. So allow them to come, but allow them to go as well. So when you have a thought, I've got to ring Jackie, you can't multitask thoughts. So you'd have had to have lost the original mantra thought in your head to think, I've got to ring Paula, or whoever it is that you're going to ring. And then, then you'll realize at some point that you've become lost in thought, and then your mind pulls you back to the mantra. And this is kind of an ongoing fluctuation between reciting the mantra, having a thought, repeating the mantra again. And you might then think, I've got to buy some rice or some tomatoes for dinner this evening. And then you may get lost in a whole trail of thought and do a whole shopping list in your head before you kind of come to and think, I've got to repeat the mantra again. So this kind of tussle between passing thoughts and repetition of the mantra will occur, particularly at the very start when our mind is busy. And they say our mind, is like one of those snow globes. You shake it up, all the snow scatters, a bit representing our thoughts. And the more you sit and repeat the mantra, it's like those thoughts subside. Why is it called transcendental meditation? Because, if you're lucky, at some point you will transcend all thought. So instead of fluctuating between repetition of mantra and passing thoughts, as the mind begins to quiet, the thoughts subside. So we lose any thought, but we also begin to lose the mantra. We've transcended both thought and the mantra. So your mind is completely empty. And it almost feels like you've been asleep, because it's a bit like you kind of go, you come to, and that moment is the waking up of the thinking mind, where another thought comes in to interrupt that inner silence. And it's not necessarily that we've gone to sleep, it's just the complete stillness of the mind, which transcended the thoughts, is now being interrupted by a thought coming in. And of course, sometimes people can actually fall asleep. But the goal is to transcend all thoughts, that we can really still the mind and really benefit from that practice. So it was described to me when I learned as, imagine you have a cup which you fill with tea or coffee or whatever. But you imagine instead of filling it with hot tea, you fill it with stress. Okay, so normally when we're about to get stressed, we don't often realize all of those physiological processes that go in or building up in the background. And sometimes we don't even know that we're stressed until our cup is now overflowing. And when the cup overflows, we get the symptoms of stress. So that might be fast heart rate. It could be, you know, a rash on the face. For females, it could be that the periods stop. They're all kind of symptoms of severe stress. Panic attacks, for example. So when I was particularly stressed years ago, and again, this is how I came to transcendental meditation, I had all of those symptoms. I'd be sitting on the tube in London and it was like, almost like a cartoon heart pumping out of the chest, severe fast heart rate. I did have a rash all over my face and my periods did stop. So I've been through all of that. And it wasn't a nice place. And I remember coming in one day on a Friday. It was just real overwork. And I kind of fell to my knees and I just cried and cried and cried. And of course I went to the doctor and he prescribed some beta blockers, which was to, you know, slow down the heart rate. So something like treating the symptoms rather than the cause, which was, you know, overwork. So I wanted an alternative approach, and that's how I came to meditation. So really, there'll be all kind of experiences when you have transcended thought. You might feel that you've been asleep. You might not feel your hands. You might not feel your legs. And it's really equivalent often of 4 hours of deep, nourishing sleep to be in that kind of transcended state. So you might feel exhausted afterwards. I remember my first weekend of initiation, I think it was 4 days, the course. I felt I was just wiped out. And of course, it's what my body needed because I was so busy and so tired that it just floored me. And of course, you know, that was a powerful effect. But after that, obviously, the more practice I did, the better I felt. So that's really the gist of transcendental meditation. Transcending all thought by the repetition of a particular bij or seed mantra, that sound, and just kind of letting go of all thoughts, transcending and then basking in the peace. Trying not, of course, to fall asleep. Sleeping is for afterwards. So as soon as you finish the 20 minutes, you can set on the timer. Some people set timers, some people don't. Then is the time to really just lie down and just kind of bask in that mind that is nice and relaxed. And if you fall asleep then that's great. You obviously needed it. But that is really the essence of the practice of transcendental meditation. Twice a day, 20 minutes each time. Sukha Purvaka, balanced breathing or 4-part breath. Sukha means easy. Purvaka refers to that in-between stage or the fact that it needs to be completed prior to other practices. There are 4 types, focusing on flow and equal rhythm. The first type is Sukha Pranayama. It's also known as Samavriti. The ratio of breath is 1010. So when we talk about the ratio, we talk about the 4 parts of the breath cycle, namely inhale, holding the breath in, exhale, and holding the breath out. We can either do it for 4 counts, 6 counts, or 8 counts. We'll do 4 today. So the in-breath, remember the ratio, 1010. In-breath we're going to use for a count of 4. Then the held in-breath is 0, meaning we're not going to hold in at all. The ratio of the out-breath also 1 is going to be the same as the in-breath. So 4 counts to breathe out. And then the 0 refers to no holding of the breath out. So really this is very simple. Equal inhale, equal exhale, no holding the breath at the top or the bottom. So we're going to breathe in for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4. I've got my metronome here on my phone, which is set at about 70 beats per minute, so that you can keep the count of inhale versus exhale. I'm just going to have our hands in Gyan Mudra or Chin Mudra, resting on our thighs. You can sit in easy pose, in lotus, Padmasana pose, anything that allows you to sit upright with a nice straight spine and good posture. Now you can hear the metronome here. So we're going to be breathing in through the nostrils for a count of 4, making use of the full breath, and then exhaling out through the nostrils for a count of 4. So normal breath in to begin, and then just exhale. And we begin. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, continue. If it feels comfortable, change it to a count of 6. But remember, if you're changing the in-breath to count of 6, the out-breath has to match. Here we go. And inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Continue. And we'll now try with 8 counts. But remember, if you go dizzy or lightheaded or feel a little faint, stop, take some normal breaths, recalibrate until you're feeling able to join back in, and choose a count that feels right for you, where you're not straining and you don't want to take a breath in between breaths. So here we go. And breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, continue. And relax. That's part 1, Sukha Pranayama. Part 2 of Sukha Pranayama is known as Loma Pranayama, or converse breath. The ratio is 1 times 1 times 1 times 0. So thinking of that breath cycle, we're going to breathe in for the same count, and then we're going to hold the breath in at the top for the same count, then we're going to exhale for the same count, but then we're not going to hold the breath out. This is also known as Visama Vritti Pranayama, and it has Antara Kumbhaka, so basically holding the breath in, but we're not holding the breath out. It's associated with dynamic, positive sun energy, so it increases the energy. Not good for things like heart problems, eye pressure problems, or high blood pressure. So again, we're going to be breathing in for a count of 4, which means we're holding the breath in at the top for the same count, also for a count of 4. And then we're going to exhale through the nostrils for a count of 4, but we're not holding the breath out at all, just involving holding the breath in. Antara Kumbhaka, that means holding the breath in. And we're also going to have the metronome set at 70 beats per minute. So bringing the hands into Gyan Mudra, sitting up straight. Take a normal breath in through the nostrils. And then exhaling. Then we begin. And inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath in, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath in, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Continue. And relax. And of course, you can also do that for counts of 6 or 8 or whatever feels comfortable for you. If 4 is too much, or people are going dizzy or feeling a little bit unwell, then take the count down to 3 or 2, as long as each ratio of the breath cycle is the same. So that's part 2, Loma Pranayama. Part 3 is known as Viloma Pranayama, or inverse breathing. The ratio for this is 1 times 0 times 1 times 1. So that means we're going to breathe in, then we're going to breathe out, then we're going to hold the breath out. So it's inhale for 4, exhale for 4, and then we hold the breath out for 4 counts. So also known as Visama Vritti Pranayama or Baya Kumbhaka. So this means holding the breath out. And when we hold the breath out, it's kind of considered a passive, negative moon energy, and therefore kind of calming and cooling on the system. So again, inhaling for 4, exhaling for 4, holding the breath out for 4. We're not going to hold the breath in at the top. Inhale, exhale, hold the breath out. Going to set the timer again for 70 beats per minute. Just a note on the timer, when we do a normal traditional class, we tend not to use a metronome, but often beginners who have no idea of timings, or they find it difficult to keep the count, it can be sometimes handy, but it's not necessary. Okay, so taking a normal breath in, getting rid of the breath, we begin. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold the breath out, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 2, 3, 4, hold the breath out, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, breathe out, hold the breath out, inhale, exhale, hold out, breathe in, breathe out, hold the breath out, in, out, hold, in, out, hold, inhale, exhale, hold, continue. And then gently relax. So you can see the part of the breathing is almost like making a shape of a triangle. Inhale, exhale, hold, equal parts. Inhale 4, exhale 4, hold out for 4, kind of a triangle shape. The last part, we're making a square shape of that breath. So now we come to part 4, which is the full Sukha Purvaka Pranayama. The fourth and final stage is Yoga Pranayama, and the aim of this stage is to introduce an equal, steady rhythm into the breathing cycle so that we can develop each part of the breathing cycle equally, and also introduce a balance and steadiness into our emotional being and into the mind. It helps to attune the nadis, those invisible energy channels, with the introduction of the breath retentions, the held in breath and the held out breath. So we begin with counts of 4. Whatever's comfortable, and then we can eventually start to increase that number to maybe 6 or maybe 8. But the aim is not to be in a rush. Even if you can do the higher counts, almost hold yourself back so that you can establish a steady rhythm, and the key word being comfortable. We're trying not to focus on sectional breathing, breathing into the abdomen, the mid-chest, the high chest, or front, side, back. Just thinking about the actual count, a steady, established, comfortable rhythm. During this part of the breath cycle, you will know and come to understand which part of that breath cycle feels the most challenging for you. Usually it's the held out breath. So even if you can breathe in for 8, hold the breath in for 8, exhale for 8, but you struggle to hold the breath out for 8 and it makes you feel uncomfortable, knock the number down to 6. So each part of the breath cycle is very comfortable. So getting up to a count of, say, 12 is a very big breath indeed and very challenging. So take it in slow, steady stages. Just a note on the pressure, when you hold the breath in, the breath and the pressure increases. And as you hold the breath out, the pressure in the body decreases. So just to be aware of that also. And it's no wonder the Navy SEALs use this particular breath before they go into battle. They actually call it square breathing. And the Navy SEALs are not new age people, so they only use technologies that do work. So it helps to calm the nerves, de-stress, focus the mind as well. So we're going to start with counts of 4, and we've got the metronome set again at 70 beats per minute for this square breathing, Sukha Puvaka Pranayama. So this is the 4 breath cycle. So as usual, we're going to take an ordinary breath in to prepare. Then we're going to exhale and then begin on the next round. So hands in Gyan Mudra, spine nice and straight and upright. Breathing in. And then just exhale, get rid of the breath. We begin. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath in. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath out. 2, 3, 4. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath in. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath out. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Hold. In. Hold. Out. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Continue. Let's go for 6 if you can. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold the breath in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold the breath out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Continue. and relax. Sukha Purvaka Pranayama. I hope you enjoyed the episode. For further information, resources, or to make a donation, visit www.emmanewhamfitness.com. Thanks.